What's going on, guys? Cody from Motorcycle MD. Welcome to part 3 of this 3-part series of cleaning, etching, and coating a tank back to its brilliance with the help of KBS-Coatings, who has supplied the tools and the necessary instructions we need to get this job done properly. We have made it, the final and last stage, thank God. If you have not checked out part 1 or part 2 of this tank cleaning series, you need to check those out. Those steps are just as vital as this final one, and those have to be perfect before we go to this final stage. At this point in the game, I've learned that all the coatings and failed coatings that I've seen, bikes being brought into the shop, the way that they look inside, they just look gross. There's flaking off, it's coming off in sheets. I've seen a number of different failed attempts at this, and I really think that it all comes down to you. Whether or not KBS-Coatings is the superior, end-all, be-all, top-of-the-mountain company to go to for this process, I'm not going to say yes or no. There are a couple companies that I've seen do this process, but the reason why I wanted to pick KBS is because it was affordable. They give you everything you need in one solid kit, and the instructions were just gold. But really, I just think it comes down to the person applying it. How well you cleaned it, how well you etched it, made sure everything is nice and clean and rust-free and a natural metal finish before you put that coating on, I think is really what makes a difference between all of this stuff, guys. Even as perfect as I thought that I got this process, there was a little section that I will show you guys in the final edit that I was nervous about. I was like, crap, do I have to redo this all over again? Having the ability to contact KBS and have them soothe my feathers was awesome. We have a finished product, we have a final product, and we have one that we know is going to last a very long time. At the end of this video, I'll give you guys some other tips that I found that were helpful when you go into this type of process, what to look for, and what I maybe did wrong, or right in that case. But enough talking about it. It is time to seal this tank. We are dry, we are rust-free, and because this process takes a total of 5 days to cure, we need to get on it. Let's do it. Key things of the third process, the sealant process, most important, and the instructions, obviously, they tell you everything you need to know. When it comes to the threaded parts of the tank, so where the petcock screws in, as well as the bung for where the main straw goes into, if we don't want sealant there, you can use WD-40 or like a light oil or a Q-tip, and just kind of wipe the threads with that WD-40 or a little bit of oil. Just a small amount, just to get the surface of it wet. The sealant, even if it sticks to it, it will be able to be peeled off. If you don't do that, it will stick to it and you cannot get it off. So that's important, obviously. So I'm going to put my plug back in, as well as my screws, put a little oil on the screws so they can hit the threads on their way in. And then I'm going to put a little bit of oil around the painted portion. I don't mind if the coating gets up onto the slip. I'm also going to be painting some onto here as well with the little brush that they give you just to seal that part as well. I'm going to paint this right here, so I'm not trying to get the gloopiness of the sealant all over that crap. I'm trying to paint it, and that should be good. But the oil, putting it around here, will allow it to not like bleed out onto the tank if that were to happen. So, stirring the can up. They say don't shake it or whirl it or swirl it or whatever. Just pop it open, grab the popsicle stick, and you're just going to drag from the bottom up, mixing it around. Try not to create air bubbles inside. Knowing the consistency of how it pours out into the tank, I'll kind of know how fast it rolls throughout the tank. But every 5 minutes, just rotating the tank, trying to think of logically of where all the sealant is at. I've also brought a little mirror with me home so I can really look and see what's dry and what's not when it comes to the sealant touching that area. Then we'll allow it to drain out of the tank patiently, and as it's draining and getting the excess out, I'm plugging it first because I just want to coat that section, and then when I'm ready to where I think that I've coated everything on the inside of the tank, I'm going to bring it all to one side and allow that to drain out and take my plugs out and that kind of stuff. I'm nervous, but let's do it. The key thing is that this stuff dries. Obviously, this begins the curing process once this lid is popped. So once you pop the top, it's time to roll. So make sure that you're set up and ready for that. I'm going to use a little bit of assembly lube with a Q-tip because this stuff's pretty thick. It won't drain anywhere or anything like that. And I will coat the threads. The screws go in. Hopefully this Q-tip so that it does not get stuck on the threads. We'll see. looks good. It's working. Go ahead and throw our plug in. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit more towards the base of these screws. This might be overkill, but alright, I'm going to hit up the top of this real quick. It does say to pour the entire contents of this in. Give it a little mixy mix, pulling from the bottom up. It does have kind of like a coppery silver pigment to it. I don't know if it should all be one color, but I'm still pulling a lot of silver up from it, so. It's pretty satisfying, honestly. The more I do it, the more silver it gets. I kind of like the fact that it's silver. I was always kind of curious as to what color the final coat would be. I seem like it's getting more solid silver. I don't know, I'm going to go for it. I'm nervous stuff's starting to... It's not getting thicker or anything immediately, but... So that's... The consistency is kind of watery. So it will definitely roll throughout the tank pretty easily. Just going to be mindful of that. Alright, let's do it. Sketchy. Alright. And now we roll. I need my headlamp on. I did notice that it was pouring a lot slow. It was moving a lot slower once it hits the tank. There it is. There's some of it. Okay, so it's where I thought it was. That's okay. I make it a mess. Keep on rotating, baby. I can see it, which is good. I'm trying to get this section right here, which is a difficult section, because it's likely going to pour out. But I gotta get it. No excuses. There it is. Cool. I'm happy with that. Alright, so now I'm going to take a second and look. I'm going to grab my mirror. It says rotate every 5 minutes, so it's going to take a while for it to start curing. Especially when it says 96 hours for full cure. Quick look what we're dealing with. See, it's dripping from the top still. But I like that it's silver. I'm a fan of that. I don't want some weird color like purple or red or anything like that. I want making it look natural. It's kind of cool. I was able to get the lip inside here real well. I think all around the base of this. But let's, like I said, grab the mirror and verify and keep rotating. I am shaking like a twig. I feel like I'm playing Operation. I don't want to touch the metal at all. Honestly, it looks like we've covered everything, which is awesome. I'm going to keep rotating as per instructions. I'm kind of working everything over to this left side, which is where the petcock is. Just coating everything on its way over to the left is what I'm trying to do. I'm going to get some cardboard ready. It should be all over here, but I'm going to do one of these numbers real quick so it can flow over. Hopefully roll down the tunnel of this part right here to that side. I'm going to get some cardboard ready, rotate it back over to the other side, and we'll start draining it out. I have a feeling that this might be the messiest part of the process, so I'm going to throw on their provided gloves. I didn't want gloves on at first because if I got any on my hands, I want to be able to feel it. But I just went inside and washed them real quick. But I think this might get a little messy. Trying to get this stuff out of here because there will be excess, obviously. So I'm going to use the box that they gave me. to catch a lot of the excess, as well as catch some on a brush to paint that gas cap part. Yeah. Alright, so let's take this off. And start draining. Go ahead and hit this gas cap up. Woo! This is not easy. This gas cap is vented as well, so I don't want to cover the vent. The way the tanks naturally sit on the frame is usually a good way to drain them, but it seems to not want to drain out like I want it to, then I'll just keep rotating it. Alright, so we'll rotate the tank real quick. There's some right there. Grab me a paper towel, get it off of here real quick. A little Q-tip action. I need more Q-tips. Whew, I'm sweating. And we're going to rotate this back onto this side. Again, trying to work everything over towards the petcock. I did get a nice little thin layer on the cap as well as the lip, and I went down a little bit onto the paint to make that good seal. And we will continue to rotate every 5 minutes. Alright, so I'm thinking most of it's going to be down on this side, maybe over here. So we're going to drag this over, grab our catch box, let it all drain. There it is. Right where I thought it was. Instructions specifically say let it patiently drain. Or patiently let it drain. More patience. I'm not gonna lie, if I were to do this again, I would easily charge someone $400 to $500. If not more. It's very time consuming. Just because you gotta just be ready to do what you gotta do, you know? Especially if the tank was previously sealed, guys. If it was previously sealed, one of the biggest issues that I ran into was they sell their own strip solvent, right? I was impatient and went out and looked for it myself. And they specifically state that they want it to contain a methylene chloride. And from the research that I was doing in stores I was going to, it's kind of difficult to find stuff with that in it. Most of it is made without methylene chloride. So I imagine that chemical is really good at helping getting that old sealer off that's in the tank. So that's why I went through so many processes. I found a good spot right here. I went through so many processes of using the strip stuff. I got super strip, heavy duty, industrial strength. I got some other brand stuff. All of it was made without methylene chloride, which was a bummer, but that's why I added in some other variables like a scraper, and I made that and enough to get as much as I could inside the tank and all that stuff. So I am sweating holding this thing. But they sell a stripper. They sell strippers over there at KBS, and it probably works a lot better, maybe faster or more efficiently than what I went through. I'm trying to get as much excess out as I can to not have it puddle. But my arms are getting tired, so I'm going to rotate the tank. Whew! Oh yeah! We're sealing right now, baby. Alright, I'm gonna let that drain down for a bit. Ideally, it's just a matter of keeping it moving, you know? So that when it's... Whew, I gotta take this shirt off. It's designed, they say specifically designed for a thin one-time coat deal. Which is fine, I understand. I did end up coating the bottom of that part right there. But if you can't get a bunch of excess out all at once, keep rotating. Looks like it's all coming down this way now. Woo! I'm gonna keep clearing out these threads. Worst case scenario, I'll tap them. Alright guys, I think the excess draining days are over for this thing. I can't get it to drain out anymore, which is fine. Just kind of keep clearing that hole out. It is thickening up in a major way, but it's coming off of that spot where I put the oil at, which is cool. That is looking awesome. It's still kind of shifting a little bit, but... So the final product, this is a total of a 7-day cure, and we have reached the finish line. Everything is coated. It looks awesome inside. The one area that I was scared about was this front section right here. If you really look at it, you see that it has some bubbles in it, and they mentioned that in the instructions. So I was thinking, man, was there still something on the metal? Is it not going to dry? Is it going to crack apart, come undone? So I contacted KBS, sent them pictures of what I got, the final result, and I just said, hey, tell me straight up, am I going to have to redo this tank or not? What he told me simply was that when it was drying, when I was rotating the tank, about 10-15 minutes in, I noticed that the flow of the sealant slowed down as it dries and everything gets coated and you're trying to work that material back over the section that's already been coated. What he told me is those little bubbles that we see that kind of build up in that one front section was just the rate of how it was slowing down. Simply put, there was just an excess of that ceramic coating in that section, which is why it did that. Everything else looks great. That's the only area that I saw that I was worried about, and he assured me if it's hard and it's not soft to the touch and then you can't move it around or anything like that, it's dry, it's good. I let it sit for an extra 2 days just to be sure. One thing I'll also point out is not all gas tanks have vented tubes on the bottom. Okay, this one does not have a vented tube, right? So it vents through the gas cap. When I went to coat this, I just wanted to be sure that I'm not plugging the vent hole for the gas tank. Okay, that's pretty vital. We don't want the tank to implode. The hardest part is probably going to be to get this gasket back on there, but we'll make do. When it comes to the vent lines, let's say like for the old CL, CB tanks that have the crossover tube for the gas line, they said that as long as you're continuing to clean out that section with like a pipe cleaner or whatever you got, that while it's sealing, it's in the drying process, you continue to just make sure that stays clear. Okay, when it comes to sections like what I dealt with the bubbling in that one section, I really wanted, when you look down inside the tank, it would look beautiful. That's what I ultimately wanted. But because of this is my first time doing it, and the rate at which it fell over that one section that took a little bit longer to dry, there was just too much content, too much of the material in that section. That's why I did that. If you wanted to avoid that, next time what I'll do is when I get to that final process, and once I know that that part's coated and it looks nice and clean, that first overlay, I'll probably focus on maintaining the rest of it at the top sections, because if that were to happen, if it were to roll again or get too much, I would rather it be in a section that I can't really see, if that makes sense. Again, I think getting the excess out, once you get a nice solid one layer coating over everything, which is what they even say in the instructions, it's a one layer type coat. You don't need to keep going over it a third and fourth time once it's already been coated, which is what I did wrong. Once you see that section coated, move on. Move on to a different area. Get the excess out. That's what's going to be key to this. I think the next time, third time, fourth time I do this, it's going to look even better every time. So I'm just really appreciative of just how well it did turn out. What I also did when I was going through this process, I got a little bit ahead of myself and I took the sealant and I went over this area thinking that I could make it nice and smooth. I couldn't. I don't know what I was thinking. It turned out it looked like someone had just used a brush with dry paint and it left lines, and I was like, that's not a good sealing surface. So I took a razor blade and kind of cleaned up this section as much as I could, not getting any material down inside the tank again. And I'll probably take some Scotch-Brite or just something that I can just kind of grind this flat again. So I almost used it as like a self-leveling material to just take a razor blade and go right across it. It filled all the voids and it looks nice and clean. So we are ready to go. Fuel valve in it, we'll put the gas in it, and we'll run this thing. I'm excited to get this thing back to the customer. And again, thank you KBS for just the help and the products that you did provide.